Hi everyone and welcome to another chilly episode of T-Dog RC. It's freezing cold outside, hence the furry hoodie. And this is the final video in the assembly series of the Seagull Models Extra 300. And in this video we're just getting all the little bits and bobs done basically to get the model finished. So things like putting the canopy on, setting the undercarriage up, all that sort of stuff. If this is the first time you've come across my channel and you're into fixed wing RC, then please hit the subscribe button. 75% of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribers. It doesn't cost you anything to be a subscriber, but massively helps me out. So hit that subscribe button, please, and also give me a thumbs up if you like the video. And with all that said, let's get onto the bench and let's get working. Okay, so first job I'm going to tackle out of my list of jobs to get it finished is the throttle cable. So we're going to get that installed and set up next. So I've already installed the actual cable. You can just about see it there. I've just got to put the outer on and then connect it to the servo. So I'm just going to take the servo arm off because it's got one of these things to that goes on the servo arm, and then you just put the cable through there, and then there's just a grub screw. So these work quite well. It's particularly for things like throttle is absolutely fine, and it does give you a bit of extra adjustment as well, but it will be easy for me just to get this servo arm off. And then got to undo this. Just got a couple of nuts on it. One goes either side of the servo arm, and I expect I'm going to have to drill this servo arm out a little bit. Yeah, just a tad. It's not quite going to go through. So just get my good old pin vise. We'll just drill that out nice and easy like that, and then should find that will go through. The only problem is I can't grab the actual nut. That would go through perfect actually if I could turn the thread, but I can't in this instance. Let me just try tightening this grub screw up. That's got it. I can actually just turn the thread. It's just a little bolt inside here. Normally, the ones I've used to these, the thread's just built into the servo connector. You don't have a bolt inside like this one. It's a bit different. Does mean that actually can spin nice and freely like that, so that is quite good, I suppose. So that's got that in there. Then we just need to fasten that on, and of course get a bit of Loctite on it. Actually no, I'm wrong. I'm not going to put Loctite on that because that's going to sit next to the servo arm, and sometimes Loctite can corrode plastic, so you have to be a bit careful of that one. So what I'll do is I'll just tighten that up and then just put a little bit of the shoe goop stuff on the end. Just put a little bit of this E6000 on the end, which is dries. It's almost like hot glue the way this dries, but obviously you don't have to. It's not hot, but it's sort of quite a flexible finish, and you can sort of peel it off as well if you want to. So it's quite good stuff. I got that tip off the lighter side of RC. First saw it used on there, and I've used it ever since. Right, So we'll screw that in there just to get this set up, and then once I've finished getting it lined up, I'll take this grub screw out and Loctite it in place, because that is going to be okay to have some Loctite on. So I'll get the servo arm back on. I've centered this servo already, so I just need to sort of set the throttle to about halfway. What I'll do next is I'll just feed my tube in. Actually, I need to feed this and take the servo arm off again and just feed the throttle cable into it first. Okay, and then what we can do is set this to half throttle. And then we'll tighten up the grub screw. Should be perfect like that. I just need to trim a little bit off that because it's a bit long. Okay, and then we'll just get the servo tester and just check that that's all okay. Okay, so that's all hooked up and moving nicely there. That's all good. So I can get that grub screw Loctited, and then I'll just glue this outer into place with just a little bit of CA. So I'm going to get that done and then move on to the next thing. Okay, so next job I'm going to tackle is getting the tail wheel fastened on. So it comes in this pack here, although it looks like there's some screws missing from what I can tell from this pack. But first job is to get this fastened on to the rudder. So that goes on that way. Doesn't give you any sort of measurements, but I think, you know, it just kind of fastens on like that with a couple of sort of self-tapping screws. And then we've got to then fasten this bit on here, and this has got some blind nuts in the fuselage already, and then it comes with these bolts to fasten that into the blind nuts. And then you use the springs basically to join these sort of two cams up. So the springs they've included them like that, so it looks like you've got to bend them yourself or tie them round at least. So that shouldn't be too difficult to do. So first job, let's get these holes marked for this. Make sure that's in the centre. And then I'll just get those drilled out. Might actually need an electric drill for this really, although it is only balsa. So actually I don't. Again, what I'll probably do is just put a little bit of shoe goop or the E6000 glue over the top of these screws. I'm not really going to need to take this off again once it's on, and it will just stop them from coming loose. Okay, that's good. Now there was one lock washer in with the pack, but the other one's gone missing. A lot of the bags were open, not by me, which is slightly frustrating because there's a few little bits and bobs that are missing. Not a lot, but things like that. So I'll put one on, but I haven't got both of them, but should be okay. And this one's going to be an Allen bolt, so this really wants to be Loctited in place as well. But I think what we'll do, just to start with, is we'll just get it all set up first, and then I'll just undo these and Loctite them. Okay, so what we've got to do now is just hook these springs up. And pull it tight. Okay, tail wheels on. That was a bit of a struggle because for some bizarre reason Seagull have decided to provide the springs without any hooks on, so you've got to bend them yourself, and it's just fiddly. Anyway, I've done it, so you know, there is enough movement. There you can see the tail wheels turning. So I always think with these spring setups there's never quite enough movement, but it is a big rudder as well, so it should be fine. If it isn't, what I might do is replace those with some sort of thin, replace these springs with some thin push rods with a couple of Z bends in each end. But obviously the spring does give you that, if this hits like a divot or something like that, it's not going to rip the rudder off or anything, but we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's on, that's done. So next is, I think we'll tackle the main landing gear, which to actually attach the landing gear is fairly straightforward, but then I've just got to have a bit of a mess around with the hubs. It does actually say in the instructions that you might need a disc cutter to cut these down, which again is a bit of a pain, but we'll see. Hopefully we won't. But that's essentially what they give you, because we've also got the wheel pants to fasten on as well. So let's spin this round and then we'll get the main gear fastened on, which is going to be very straightforward, hopefully. So the bolts are already in here, ready. So we just need to take those out, and then it's going to be too small, I think. So there's 3 bolts with blind nuts already in place. I've got the wheel pants there, nicely painted, and undercarriage is here wrapped in this plastic. So let's get this fastened on, and then we'll tackle these axles and wheels and the wheel pants. Okay, so in terms of getting the wheels and the wheel pants set up, I've got one on, as you can, no you can't see. So I've got this side on. I did make a little bit of a mistake. On the first one well, I've made a couple of mistakes actually, to be honest, but you can't really tell on the other one at all, so it's fine. But on the first one I didn't read the instructions properly typically, and I assumed that this bit sort of, it said to drill an 8mm hole in the wheel pants, and I assumed it was on both sides to allow this to go through, but it's only on one side, so I've drilled a small hole. Fortunately it was just the pilot hole, and then I realised I'd made a mistake, so that's just going to one of those things. You're not going to notice that at all when it's down at the flying field, so I'm not too worried about that. And then the instructions are a little bit misleading, because it says to drill a hole, an 8mm hole in the wheel pants on the instructions, but then it says to cut a slot. But I drilled the hole before I read the next section, which is accompanied by a picture that says you need a slot to cut a slot. So it's not quite clear. There's like, the text says drill a hole, the picture says cut a slot. So in the end I've pretty much done both, as you can see there. But by the time you've got it on and it's up against the undercarriage leg, and the wheels in the wheel pan, you literally can't see it, so it's not really a problem. And what you have to do is, so you've got a couple of collets on this thing that we've got to undo. So we slide that one down. That just wants to go against this nut pretty much. These do need Loctiting, of course, which I'll do in a few minutes. And then we slide the wheel on like that, and then put the other collet on. So obviously make sure that that can spin round okay, as it can. And then you put the whole assembly in here. And actually we need to put a washer on here as well, because that's going to go on the inside of the wheel cover, and then you've kind of got to jig it into place, which is a little bit of a fiddle, but it does go in. Okay, so we got there in the end. So it kind of just fits in there like that, with the washer on the inside of that slot. And then of course we just move the camera, put the threaded section through there, another washer, and then we just fasten that on with the last nut to secure the whole assembly together, basically. Obviously making sure that the wheels still spin. Before we really tighten it up. So that's how it goes. So yeah, that's all good. What I'm going to do now though is just going to kind of take it all to bits again and just Loctite those grub screws and Loctite these nuts. Now I'm happy with how it's all going to go together. There are some covers. Let me just get them out of the box. But they're a bit of a monstrosity, I think. They obviously cut a slot in the top, and then I assume you've got to trim this round, and they fit on there. But I'll be honest, I don't think I'm going to bother putting them on, because I get the feeling that you've got to CA them on. I think after a few flights they're just going to fall off, and I'm not even sure they look that great, so I'm going to leave those off. So that's the undercarriage all done really. Got the tail wheel on, obviously, got these on. So then next job after this is going to be gluing the canopy on, or actually I think what I'll do after this is put the cowl on. So I'll get the cowl fastened on, get that screwed into place. I need to offer it up with the spinner and the prop, just to make sure it's all aligned correctly. And then yeah, once I've done that, we'll have a look at gluing the canopy on. And then just literally a few other little jobs then. So got to get the battery pack attached, which I've not bought yet, so I need to order a battery pack. Need to put the receiver in and get that set up, and then I'm just going to go round with some E6000 on all the sort of clevises and control horn bolts and all that sort of stuff, just to make sure nothing's going to come undone. So yeah, next task is the cowl. Okay, so moving on to the cowl. I've got it all positioned, as you can see, and I've got the prop on spinner on just to check it all. And I'm not going to use the screws that came with it, because I use these little hex head ones when it decides to focus. So these sorts. So these are 2.2 by 11 mils. And they're just a nice size and just look a little bit nicer, and because they've got this like pan sort of washer head on them as well, they're a bit nicer on the cows. It's what I used on my PC6 Porter, and it looked a lot better. So what I've done is I've just put some masking tape here and here, because there are some mounting points on the side of the fuselage, and so what I've done is the top of the masking tape is level with the middle of the mounting point. So I know if I drill there, right at the top of that masking tape, that's going to be right slap bang in the middle of the mounting point. So I'm going to get the two top ones drilled just screw them in, make sure it's all secure again, and then I'll get the bottom ones and then the middle ones done. But yeah, pleased with the way that's gone on there. It's looking good. So what I'm going to do, I've got all the plumbing done as well. I've just been messing around with that, so got the engine plumbed up with the fuel tank. I'm going to get it all fastened in, then I'm going to take the screws back out again, and then just leave it for a little bit, because there's a couple of reasons. First one is I want to get some thin CA into the holes after I've screwed it in, just to strengthen those up. But also I have got a little bit of tinkering to do with the engine, because it's when I throttle it up from idle, it's cutting out. So I just need to mess a little bit with the low speed needle valve, which is a bit of a pain, but it's easier for me to take it down the field actually and do that. So I'll need the cowl off for that anyway. So yeah, first time I take it down to the field, I'll take it down without the cowl, get the engine tuned up, and then I probably will put the cowl on at the field, and because I don't really want, you know, it looks so nice, I want it to be on for the main flight basically. So yeah, I'm going to get drilling and we'll get the cowl on. Right, that's got the cowl on. So I haven't put any screws in the top because I want to keep that nice and clean, so I've just put them down the side. There was 3 mounting points, I've used all 3. Obviously it would have perhaps looked a little bit nicer just with 2, but I just wanted that extra security of having 3, because cows, you know, are often prone to vibrating themselves off, and well, not off but loose, because you know, there's so much vibration going on around there. But that's gone on really nice. I really do like those screws that I use. They're perfect for this job, and because they're hex head, they do actually look quite neat. You know, they almost look like a sort of factory fitting kind of thing. So yeah, that's spot on. Really happy with that. So next job now is basically just to get the canopy glued on. That's kind of the last big sort of job, if you class it as a big job. And then we're into all the little fiddly bits, you know, like putting the receiver in. I need to mount the switch, and then just, as I've said before, sort of go over some of these screws and things like that, and make sure they're not going to undo. So yeah, next job for me then is to get this canopy on. Fairly straightforward task. I'm just going to use some of this canopy glue just to fasten this on, and it's actually quite a nice canopy, because you don't need to cut it out or anything, and it's already got the nice sort of paint job on it, so it does fit on quite well. So it just kind of fits over, obviously, like this, and then we just got to glue it into position, and the lines line up quite nicely, so that's pretty good. The only thing I've got to watch out for is at the back here, which you can't quite see really, but at the back, just got to watch that I don't glue it to the actual fuselage, and then I can't get the hatch off. So I think what I'm actually going to do is take the hatch off like that, and I'm actually just going to glue it onto the hatch, and then there's no risk of me making a bit of a mess and gluing it to the actual fuselage, because that wouldn't be ideal. The other thing I've done is I've just attached a little battery meter there, so that I've just drilled a hole and that comes through the other side, and I'll just put an extension lead on this, so that it's just going to plug into the fuselage, because once I'm down at the field, the switch is going to be on the side of the fuselage here, so really I'm not going to have any particular need to take this on and off, so it's not going to be too inconvenient, the fact that it's going to be connected with a cable underneath, but it would be a nice view to see how the battery's doing. So I'm just going to get this canopy glued on, and then I shall show you what that looks like. Alright, so canopy is on. I glued it at the front here using the canopy glue, and that's got that really nice and solid. It didn't kind of stick around the sides, because the canopy does actually sort of flex out a little bit, so you can't really glue it along the sides. But what I've done, just to be on the safe side, is I've just put one of these little hex head bolt screws. It's only probably 8 mils in length, so it's just the perfect size for that, just to secure the canopy in each of the corners. Just, you know, a bit of extra security. If it does sort of get flicked up at the front and the air gets under it, it's not going to actually come off. And then at the back, if I just sort of take it off, So around here I ended up just using a little bit of thick CA just to get that secured, and that's nice and tight as well. So that's all good. Canopy's on. So that was kind of the last, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a big job, but it was kind of the last sort of biggish job that I'd got to do. So now it is just a case of doing all the little bum flufferoos basically. So we got to get the switch mounted, get the receiver in, get the servos hooked up to the receiver, all those little bits and bobs. Get some shoe goop onto these things, you know, all the control horns and things like that to stop them coming undone. So I am going to crack on with all that. I'm not going to bother filming those sorts of bits, but what I will do is I'll show you the finished plane, and then that'll wrap this video up. Right then, radio gear's installed, so you can see I've got the receiver in there. So this is a Radiomaster R168. You can't actually get these anymore. These use the FreeSky D16 protocol, but FreeSky stopped Radiomaster from making them, but I bagged a few before that happened. So I've just secured that down with a 3M sticky pad, and then I've cable tied the cables going back to the servos. And then I've got these two here for the ailerons, which again I've just cable tied these together to make it easier. So that's not a Y lead. I've got one going into channel 1, one going into channel 5, and I'll use a mix on my radio to get that. This one, which is a different colour, is going to the battery monitor, which I've put in the canopy, which I'll show you in a minute. Then we've got the little switch there that's just installed in the side. So that's all nice and working, flashing red at the moment because my transmitter's not on. Then I have installed the battery like this. So this is a 6-volt, 2,500 milliamp battery, which I didn't even know I'd got actually. I found it in my box of bits. It's brand new. I did actually want a slightly bigger one just to add some weight, because I know for a fact this thing's going to be tail heavy. So I'm going to have to add some weight to the nose. But even if it was maybe a 3,000, I'd still have to add more weight. And anything bigger than a 3,000 I think would probably just not quite fit in this space. But that's gone on there really nice. Fits there perfect. So that's again mounted on some 3M pads just to give it a little bit of suspension, if you like, cushioning, and then I've got a big thick cable tie that I've drilled a hole through there just to fasten that round. And then underneath here, you can't really see that well, but I've that's where I've got an extension lead going from the battery, and I've put some heat shrink tubing on that to secure that in place, and I've just glued that onto the side with some E6000. And then in here you can just about see there as well, again that's another extension lead for the battery, and again that's just fastened together, and then heat shrink around it to stop it from coming apart. And then aerials or antennas, whatever you want to call them. So I've got one going up vertical like that there, and then I've got another one. I'm going to have to tip this because I can't bend the camera down on this tripod thing. So I've got another one, well, you can't really, it's not going to focus, but that's kind of going across, so they're as 90 degrees as I can get them, so that should be fine. And then, as I've mentioned, this is the glue that I use. So I keep calling it shoe goop, which I think is what it used to be called a long time ago, but it's E6000. It's really nice glue. It dries crystal clear, and it's almost like hot glue, but without obviously needing any heat. So it's like a gloopy texture, and it's brilliant for sort of Loctiting things down and stopping things from coming undone, because it stays rubbery. And if you ever need to, you know, if you've glued something and you need to get it apart, you can sort of peel it off. But it's great for shock absorption, that kind of thing. And the other thing I've just done, which you probably won't be able to see, is I've used some of this E6000 on the servo connectors going into the receiver, just to lock those in place a little bit. So that is more or less done. I've got one last job to do, and that is just measure the CG. So I've literally just measured it, marked it out on the wings using these little spots that I use. So as I say, I think it's going to be tail heavy. Yeah, tail heavy. I have got some weights, but I don't think that's going to be enough, so I'm probably going to need to order some more of those. But I'll get it all set up and laid out, and then we'll finish the video off, and I'll show you what it looks like all put together. Right then, well, here it is in all its glory, and I'm really pleased with it. I think it's a great looking model. It's the sort of thing that when I first went into a model shop when I was about, probably 8 or 9 years old, this is the sort of thing I saw hanging up in the model shop, and to me this is like what a model aircraft should look like. Yeah, really like it. Really like the colour scheme as well. My little boy came in the workshop the other day and said, "Oh, it looks like our flag." And yeah, it kind of does look a little bit like the Union Jack, so I quite like that as well. So that's good. So it's all completely done now. Got all the stickers put on. As you can see, got the battery monitor mounted inside there, so that should be quite nice to be able to see that when I come in for a low pass. Yeah, but just think it looks superb. So I've just pushed the cowl on for now and just sort of loosely fitted the prop and spinner on there. The only thing, as I say, I've got to do is just check the CG. So I'll do that in a bit before I take it down the flying field. But yeah, really looking forward to doing the maiden on this one, and that will be the next video in this series. I've got to take it down the flying field and just do some fiddling around with the engine just to make sure it throttles up okay, because it was cutting out when I throttled up, so I think I've just got to mess around with the low speed needle valve a little bit, which is a bit of a pain because that can take a little while to get that set up, but it's just one of those things. But yeah, so if you've enjoyed watching this, then hit the bell icon so you get notified when I do the maiden. And I really appreciate everyone that's watched along with this, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you're into fixed wing RC, particularly balsa wood, I do nitro and electric, so this one's just been a nitro project, but do get involved with electric as well. If you're into that sort of thing, then you're going to want to subscribe to my channel. I've got loads more videos planned for this year, and hopefully you can help me out by getting to over 1,000 subscribers. I think it's about time I hit that now. Been doing this, what, almost 3 years, I think? No, 2 years. This is my 3rd year of doing YouTube, so I'd really like to hit that 1,000. If you can help me out by hitting the subscribe button, it doesn't cost you anything. And if you've enjoyed the video, then give me a thumbs up, give me a like. If you've got any comments, stick them below and I'll always answer those. And thanks as always to people who have already subscribed and who support the channel. I really do appreciate it. So there we are, Seagull Extra EA300L, pretty much ready to go. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you soon for the next one.